Right. Hey everyone. Morning from gloomy and rainy DC. I wish I was in UK to give this talk in person, especially now that I see a full room of people. But it is what it is. Maybe next time when the situation is better. The motivation for today's talk comes from experience. The title of the talk is Code Review, a software engineer's best friend. And which means we'll spend the next 30 to 35 minutes talking about code reviews and why I think they're software engineers' best friend. Before we jump into all the details, I would like to take a minute or two to formally introduce myself. My name is Goce. I live and work in Washington, DC. I'm a team lead and an Android developer at alarm.com. Alarm.com is a home automation and security company. I lead a team of 10 developers, iOS and Android developers, and my team works on video streaming from cameras that we sell to customers and viewing saved clips from the cameras on the mobile app. So, like I said, we'll spend the next 30 to 35 minutes talking about code reviews, and I divided today's talk in 4 sections. In the first section, we'll talk a little bit about code reviews, what they are, why we should use them, the history of code reviews, and things like that. Once we formally introduce them, I'm going to talk about knowing your audience, meaning how code reviews affect the junior developers on your team or the people that have just started. Afterwards, we'll look at things from the other perspective. How should senior developers, team leads, use code reviews to train their team and boost their motivation? And finally, I'm going to conclude the talk with some of the best practices that I use with my team. So let's get started with the first section. Let's formally introduce code reviews. I like this definition, and I'll just go ahead and read it for you. What is a code review? It's an activity in which a developer, other than the author, examines the software deliverable for defects and improvement opportunities. In other words, this means two things. Making sure that your code follows best standards or your company standards. And the second thing is catching bugs early in the development process. So we use code reviews to catch a bug. The sooner you catch it, the easier it is to fix it and the less money it costs the company to fix it. But in my opinion, there's one more reason why code reviews are good, which is not that obvious. I think, in my opinion, code reviews are a good teaching tool and a good motivation tool for your team. And that's what I want to focus on today. Not catching bugs and adhering to standards. So we saw the formal definition of code reviews. There's also a not so formal definition of code reviews given here in the picture. Basically, for those of you who do not know what the Boy Scout rule is, it's basically you have to leave the campground in a much better place than what you found it initially. So I think the situation is similar with code reviews. Whenever you make changes to a code, you should try and leave the code in a better shape than it was before. I spent some time looking for the history of code reviews online, and I wanted to share some statistics with you. And I wanted to find a record of the first code review and how they initially started. But I couldn't really find anything, to be honest with you. Well, that's wrong. I actually found this picture, which I'm not really religious, but I think that's Moses getting his 10 Commandments reviewed. And judging by the look on his face, he's not very happy about the comments that he's getting. He'll probably have to modify a lot of things. Going back to newer times, on the picture on the left, you can see Margaret Hamilton, who was the lead developer on the Apollo project. The Apollo project was basically the project that took the United States crew members to the moon. So this is the source code that she actually wrote. And at that time, there was no GitHub, so they actually had to print it printed out and had one developer submit the code and 6 people formally review the code. Makes you kind of wonder how they reviewed it. This is the only thing that came to my mind. I don't see how else they would do it. So probably 6 people were looking at it like this. But all jokes aside, the code is actually available on GitHub. I think they made it. I think they uploaded the code a year or a year and a half ago, and I took some time to look at it. And it's quite interesting to review code from 1969. Some of the things that I noticed were that the code was very readable. Even though it was written in 1969, it was easy to follow what's going on, at least. Like, I didn't understand the whole source code. Well, you can imagine if you have to review it the way that they did, it has to be readable, right? There were around 65,000 lines of code, no files without comments, and pretty much half of the lines contained a comment. And one thing that I noticed was that from the comments, they also had a lot of jokes. So for instance, I saw a comment above the main function that was turning on the ignition, which means it launches the rocket. The comment was "burn, baby, burn." So I guess you call the function and the rocket flies away. And humor is essential for landing people on the moon, right? I mean, humor is essential in every work environment. Gets you through the day. And most importantly, code reviews are a must. Like, this was a multi-billion-dollar project. A lot was at stake. So even though they had to review all those books, they had to make sure they don't do any mistakes and land people at the moon. People's lives were at stake. So even though most teams and most companies have a formal code review process, it's not uncommon for small teams and startups to overlook that process. You might ask me, why is that? But I'm not sure what the exact reason is. In my opinion, I think these teams are trying to ship features fast. They're trying to make it to the market. They are trying to survive, so they might overlook some of the best practices and some of the common processes. Well, that might get them to the market, but it might cause problems for them later in the day if they become the next Google or Facebook. They'll probably end up paying technical debt that they never intended to pay. And at least here in the United States, if your app or if your software is processing payments, you're required by law to have some sort of formal code review and evaluation process. So now that we see that code reviews are very important and a must, I want to talk more about how code reviews affect people, and especially how code reviews affect those new fresh graduates, junior developers that join your team that have never been exposed to code reviews in the past. So what can we say about those people? What can we say about a fresh college graduate? I was a fresh college graduate once, and I remember I was looking for a job. I found a job at a small startup, and I was super excited. I spent 4 years in college, spent a lot of money to go through college, studied a lot, worked hard, and I can finally cash in my college degree, right? I was ready to change the world one line of code at a time. Little did I know that I had no work experience, or no experience at all when it comes to working on a big project. Like, all I knew was how to do my homework, how to work on class project. Basically, I knew nothing about code reviews and how to interact in a bigger team. And that's the aspect that's missing in most schools. No school teaches you about code reviews. No school teaches you about work ethics and how the comments that you leave in code reviews can affect the person you're reviewing the code for. So a lot of these new developers actually find themselves writing a lot of the code in big organizations, even though they are inexperienced. The senior developers and tech leads spend most of their time reviewing the code. They don't write that much code. In addition, they also spend a lot of time in architecture, design, fighting with product. So you have to be really careful to keep, as a senior developer, you have to be very careful to keep your junior developers motivated and show them that you are working towards the same goal. Having that said, I actually want to walk you through a scenario of my first experience with code reviews and how the effect code reviews had on me and on my career. Like I said, around 10, 15 years ago, I graduated from college and I joined this small startup that had around 10, 15 people. There were 2 lead developers and there was no ownership just because of the size of the team was small. Everybody owned everything, which is typical for a startup. You try to ship features fast and write a lot of code in a short amount of time. So I got my first pull request and assign it to one of the senior developers. And he took some time to review it. He basically destroyed me. I mean, obviously the code that I wrote was not going to be nominated for the best code of the year type of a word. But I did a decent job for that time. I wrote a unit test. I tried to write clean code. But the bad senior developer didn't realize that this was my first baby. For him, it was just another code review that he needs to do. So he just did what he usually does. He didn't really provide enough hand-holding. He didn't really provide enough guidance. He only pointed out what I did wrong and what I need to change. So how did I take that? I had no idea that it's just business. I thought that this is personal. I thought that he's attacking me. A lot of developers tie their self-worth to the work that they do. So basically my ego was hurt. I felt like this guy has a problem with me, that he's attacking me or something. In addition, I felt threatened. I just joined this job and everything I do doesn't seem good, right? Everything that I work on needs to be changed and fixed. So am I gonna get fired? And I started hating my job. Like, I wake up early in the morning, I'm stuck in traffic, I do the best job that I can, and this guy doesn't give me a break. Like, what is his problem? So what did I do? I mean, I started avoiding him and things became personal. At least I thought they were personal. Even though in his eyes they weren't, it was just another code review. So because I avoided him, I started assigning some of the merge requests to the other developer. Keep in mind that this was a small team where everybody owned everything. So the good developer did things differently. He realized that I was new and that I need a lot of guidance and a guiding hand as well. So what did he do different? He would type comments to principals, which would help me learn. For instance, I had no idea what a singleton is. And he would say, should we use this singleton pattern here? And in addition, he wouldn't say, you should use a singleton pattern here. He would frame feedback as questions so that he makes me feel that I'm part of the team. Like, do you think we should use the singleton pattern in this example? That way I would have to look it up, understand what it is, and see things from his perspective. And we would have a conversation. So I felt part of the team. And in addition, he would provide plenty of examples, which were very helpful when you're a brand new developer who doesn't have much experience with things. So how did I take this? Well, of course, I didn't take it personal. I thought that I was part of the whole. I thought that I was part of the team. I realized that code reviews are not a blame game. They're not used to show me that I am not a good developer, I realized that the senior developers are sometimes just as confused and insecure as I am, and that we are trying to solve this problem together. We both have the same goal, which is to make scalable, testable, and maintainable code. And finally, I started loving my job. I had a mentor who was there to help me with anything. And if I got stuck, I could talk to him and he would provide the necessary guidance. So I wasn't avoiding him. I loved him. And I think if not for the good senior developer, I would have probably changed professions and I wouldn't be talking to you today. So he really made me love my job and really helped me excel at what I do. So I would encourage you to be very careful in how you do code reviews for your junior developers. Make them feel like they're part of the team. And keep in mind that at the other end of the screen, there's another person who is also maybe facing the same daily challenges as you are. So just be mindful of how you do code reviews, how you leave comments. So I want to spend a little bit of time looking at things from the other perspective. Like we talked about junior developers and how they see code reviews. Now I want to talk about those people that have at least 3-4 years experience and that spend most of their time reviewing code as opposed to writing code. So how can you actually become that good developer, that true leader in the team? In my opinion, there are simply 3 rules to become that person. People like praise, give them praise. You basically cannot just say in a code review, you cannot just say what needs to be changed and what was done wrong. I think you need to point out what needs to be done, what things they did well, basically. I'm going to go through a couple of examples to prove my point for these 3 rules. The second one, the code is owned by the team, not the individual. You should probably keep your code reviews to standards, be very strict, because if the author of the code writes crappy code, you guys merge it and he leaves, then your team or you will end up owning that crappy code that he wrote and you have to maintain it. And finally, love your developers, but do not trust them. I'm gonna give you more examples and show you what I mean in just a minute. So let's talk about the first rule. I actually want to show you a similar situation. For instance, this is a picture of my girlfriend and I during Christmas 2019, and this was pre-Corona time. So we went to a restaurant for dinner, and imagine that the date for the dinner was a code review, and I was reviewing my girlfriend's outfit at the time. Can you imagine what would happen if I only pointed out the negatives and the shortcomings and what she did wrong in the way she's dressed? Like, how would the date end? Probably something like this. And I think this is probably the best case scenario. Similarly, in code reviews, things won't go well if you just point out the negative things, which is exactly what the bad developer did for me. There has to be at least one positive thing to say, and it doesn't have to be big. You can say, great job ending these tests. This code is very clean. Thank you for writing a comment. Something that will tell them to tell the author of the code that they've also done a good job and that you appreciate what they do. But if you work with this person for a year or 2, don't overdo it because it becomes kind of silly. The second rule is basically there's no I in team. The team is more important than the individual. Well, that kind of came out wrong, but when it comes to the code, the team owns the code, not the individual. So I have a picture here of President Obama, and the logo of his campaign was, "Yes, we can." Can you imagine how his campaign would end if he was saying, yes, you can? That would imply that all the responsibilities are on the people and nothing is on him. So similarly, in code reviews, whenever you say, can you change this line of code? Or can you use a singleton here? You're implying that all the responsibilities and all the work needs to be done by the author of the code. If you say, can we use a singleton here, that implies something completely different. That implies that you as a team are changing the code, even though the work is being done by the author of the code, not the reviewer. But it gives you some sense of mutual ownership and team pride. And like I said, if they leave the team, you're left maintaining their code. So just try to use we instead of you whenever you post comments. And the third rule is love your developers, but do not trust them. Like I pointed out earlier, your junior developers are super excited and very inexperienced. So they try to ship code fast and they don't necessarily follow best principles and best standards. Sometimes things need to be delivered fast, so they don't really test they might not test the code or not know all the use cases. What I usually do is I open the branch locally, I pull the code, I run it, I test it. When you review the code, really review it and test it, because the developers are just as busy as you are and they might miss something. And I always ask for warnings to be fixed, comments to be addressed, because the warnings it's only a matter of time before they become errors, or they must be modified or addressed. I have a very short video here, which shows why you shouldn't trust your developers. There's a very small conversation, but I'm not sure if you'll hear it. If you don't, it's okay. So I'm not sure if you guys could hear the audio, but whenever the developer submitted the code, he said, I have no idea what I'm doing. He just deleted the test and submitted the code. And the senior developer, the tech lead in this case, also said, I have absolutely no idea what I'm reviewing. So he just thought that they did the job right and approved it and merged the code. So you don't want to be part of this team. You don't want to be this leader, because obviously it's only a matter of time before they break something. Well, this is the last section that I want to talk a little bit. These are some of the best practices that I use with my team when I am reviewing their code. So often I find myself in situations where I have to write a lot of text and explain a lot of things to developers, these junior developers, on how something needs to be done. And when I find myself in that situation, what I usually do is create a separate branch off of their branch, do the changes that I'm suggesting, and have them review it. Just because they're new, this helps them get used to reviewing someone else's code, and it's easier for them on occasions to understand what I mean. Sometimes words can be difficult, and it's just easier to express yourself through code. And it's also easy for them to just merge the branch into their branch or simply copy and paste the code. But if you do this, make sure that you're writing production ready code. You don't want them copy and pasting something that's proof of concept. If the code is better than before, approve it. This is a rule that I have. It's sort of a controversial rule, but I think it's incomplete, not controversial. I think the rule is if the code is better than before, approve it, only if you have a process in place that addresses technical debt. It's not uncommon with short deadlines and big projects to have to rush things. And as long as they work fine, I think it's okay to approve them and merge them. But you should have a healthy process that addresses the technical debt. If you say that you will clean it up later, please define when that later is, in a week, in a month, and do it. Otherwise, you'll just end up merging code that you will never clean up and address. With my team, we have a so-called maintenance week, and each team member rotates on a weekly basis. And in that week, they only work on technical debt, meaning they address bugs that we never have time to look at just because they're not in the high priority list, or they clean up code, or they try some new features, for instance, experiment with Jetpack Compose and similar things. As a leader, you should promote clarity and guide. I've seen a lot of bad reviews and bad comments in the past. Basically, this is an actual comment that I got in a company I joined a couple of years ago. This was around after a month I joined, so he asked me he said, possibly can we change to something? And I was very confused. Does he want me to change this? Is he just suggesting for me to explore? When should I change this? How should I change this? I mean, what does he really want here? There's a lot of ambiguity. So please don't do this. Please be very clear in what you are asking and why you're asking it to be changed. The larger the request, the slower the review. So this is another example that I was faced with recently. 64 files changed and 3,000 lines of code. It took me weeks just to find the motivation to review this, and it took me more than a month to get this reviewed. Whenever you submit code, just look at things from the other perspective. Somebody needs to review this, and the more things you change, the more difficult it becomes to review it, and the more difficult it is to test it. So try to follow this simple principle. Commits should be very specific and focused, and so do merge requests. They only need to change one thing and have a very specific purpose. That way, pull request, the merge request will be merged faster, and the process will be smooth from both sides. Patience is a virtue when it comes to hotfixes. Do not rush them. I know that sometimes bugs end up in production, bad bugs end up in production. And when this happens, I see situations where you want to fix it, you might be losing thousands of dollars. For instance, Facebook went down for a couple of hours, I think, a few weeks ago. So even though things are bad, I try not to rush the reviews, because if you do rush the reviews, you might not actually fix the problem just because you're in a haste. And that might result even in a longer downtime. So patience is in fact a virtue. Use the build tools that are available to you to reduce the number of things that you have to look out for. For instance, most build tools allow you to have the build fail if the code is not written up to standards or up to your company standards. For instance, our code, the build will fail if comments are not provided on public functions in classes. This might be annoying, but that's the standard for the code that we write. And when I review the code, if we don't have the build failed, then I have to make sure that I ask them to add a comment. And I wouldn't always do that. But when the build fails, there's no discussion. They know that they have to do it. And all I need to do is just focus on the logic and the actual changes on the code, not sort of to say the noise of the code. And I think this is the last slide. We talked a lot about best practices and things that I think people should do as part of code reviews. But I want to point out a few things that I personally avoid, and I would encourage you to avoid as well. So I am not a huge fan of GIFs, especially in code reviews. I don't know about you, but I haven't even looked at what is written on the screen. All I've been looking at is the GIF. I just cannot take my eyes off it. And I find the same situation when I'm reviewing code. And I should not be looking at a GIF when I'm reviewing the code. I should be focused on the actual problem. Also, I'm not a huge fan of abbreviations, especially if you work in a big international team. Some of the things that are, some abbreviations that are obvious to you are not obvious to other people. So if you write BAU and save 5 seconds, you might waste someone else's 5 seconds. So I would write business as usual. And try to not approve something you don't understand. It will, sooner or later, it will come back and bite you. It's only a matter of time before you break something. So take your time, try to understand it. You're in a team, try to understand things together and do the best job that you can. Thank you for your attention, and let me know if you guys have any questions. I cannot hear you, I'm sorry. You guys seem to be muted, at least that's what Zoom tells me.
I should have checked that first. Now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. Really enjoyed the talk. I just had a question around the clarity one where it said, oh, maybe we could try out this piece of code instead, but didn't explain it. Is it possible though that if you pose it like that, it's like a suggestion and it sort of respects the author's like autonomy and intelligence rather than sort of being prescriptive? Is there like maybe a way of like balancing that sort of suggestion based thing rather than being too prescriptive and do this because I'm smarter than you, or just do this because I think it's best?
Mm-hmm. So you're basically talking about where I said you should create a separate branch and show them what you mean, right? So I think you could start off with a discussion and ask them if it is okay for you to show them what you mean through code. So basically, it might be as simple as that. It's a little bit difficult for me to explain this, or it will take me forever if I write this. It's just easier if I show you in code and open a pull request, and they can decide if they want to merge it back into their branch or not. And the discussion goes from one pull request with massive comments. It's taken to another pull request that's focused on that particular problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. My kind of question is based on, so code reviews. What's your kind of view on a system where rather than you write the code and like show them, like you'd have like a call with them and they would kind of explain why they've written the code, and then you could potentially kind of say, oh no, if you do it this way, like kind of like pairing for code review. Have you done that before? Have you got any reviews on that? Any views on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before, and I do a lot of that nowadays because of the pandemic. Most of us are remote. I think I like to have things in writing. In case you're working on a mission critical project, it's good to meet and talk things over, but I would at least add a summary of what was discussed. You can just say, we decided to go with approach A because of reasons A, B, and C. That way you have a physical record of what was discussed and it's not lost in the air. And when you look at it, for whatever reason, 3 months later, you will know why you guys decided to go in that route as opposed to another route.
Sounds like a really good idea. Cool. Thank you very much.
Hello. Amazing talk, by the way. I think a lot of different devs have different opinions on how much time should be invested into reviewing a pull request. What are your opinions on this?
I had a slide where I was talking about pull requests or merge requests being as focused as possible. I feel like if it takes you more than a couple of hours, then it's too big and it probably has to be broken up. I would not go more than a day. Like I said, that pull request had 64 files. It took me weeks just to find the motivation to look at it, and I was postponing it for as long as I could. And then it took me a month and several other co-workers to help me review it. What I should have done in that situation was ask them to split up the work so that we can focus on the individual pieces and then merge them as a whole. To answer your question, a couple of hours, not more than a day. If it takes more than that, I would ask them to break it up. I think the review should be focused, do one thing, and that should not take a lot of time.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So currently in our projects, like we're actually putting into practice quite a lot of the things that you have described. However, there's one thing that we currently don't use too much, and it's actually been on my mind, which is the issue tracker page on GitHub. Do you have any recommendations for a practical way of using the issue trackers that go beyond simply, I'll put it this way. Let's say there's a discussion in a PR for something that needs to be fixed, but not necessarily within the PR, maybe because it's too complex. Would it be a good idea to track it in the issue tracker as opposed to using the PR as a means of tracking that discussion, or having the discussion tracked in a ticket management system? Should that discussion be discussed in the issue tracking page instead?
I think it depends on the issue that's being discussed. If it is more of a program manager, product owner type of a discussion, the decisions on how some things should behave, then they should probably go in the issue tracking system like Jira, because I think in most companies, product owners don't have access to GitHub. And I think the technical portion, which is what kind of solution to use and what to use, should probably happen in the GitHub. I mean, in the pull request in the comments. I'll be honest with you. I work in a company where we don't use GitHub, and it's been a year or two where I have not used GitHub, only for my own project. So it's been a while since I've had to deal with this situation.
Some sort of equivalent like system, maybe. I know it's a bit oddly specific, but it was just something on my mind.
Yeah, I would try to separate the concerns. I would keep the technical part in GitHub and the non-technical part somewhere else. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed giving this talk.